Prav Patel had levels of malaria classed as 3 times more than the severe infection rate.
He spent 36 days in North Manchester General Hospital. 22 of those days were spent in intensive care.
Doctors say that running saved his life, but there were other things that Prav learnt throughout this experience too.
This is TRC Meets, where we meet incredible runners with amazing stories. There's a knock at your front door. You're delirious. It's the paramedics. You didn't call them, and you don't realise that they're there for you. What's going on?
I thought it was an Amazon parcel. To be honest. I stumble out of bed after watching, I don't know what, on TV. And I open the door, 3 paramedics are there, and I'm like, what on earth? I think I was just watching like Guardians of the Galaxy or something earlier on, so I was absolutely tripping balls, to be perfectly honest. Welcomed them in, asked them if they wanted a cup of tea. Still had no idea why they were there. And then they started to ask me some really basic questions. And then I sat down and I was unable to answer them. So it was things like what my date of birth was, asking me to spell my name, and where I'd gone on holiday, where I'd just come back from. And I honestly just it was on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah,
but I just couldn't say it.
And at what moment, can you remember like looking at their facial expressions? Or like at what moment did it hit? Okay, maybe there is something wrong. Maybe I'm quite ill.
It was genuinely when they asked me my date of birth, and I just couldn't quite say it.
So then what happened next from there?
They started asking me things like where I'd been on holiday, what I did for a living, how long I'd been back. Then from memory at that point, it was like, I'm there scratching my head thinking, I know the answers to these questions and I'm not quite sure why I'm not answering them. So then they asked me to get a few things, and one of the paramedics took me around the flat. They all commented on how nice it was, which was quite nice. I was like, oh, yeah, like that. Yeah, it's quite good. I was like, oh, yeah, this is a John Mayer over here. And I was like, yeah, quite happy with that. I remembered that for some reason. And then I picked up a bunch of things, put them in my backpack, and I came out and they says, right, okay, one of us is going to go get a wheelchair for you. And I kind of recall a conversation between the paramedics as to which hospital in Manchester they're going to send me.
And had your girlfriend called the paramedics for you because she thought that, well, essentially she was just really worried about you?
Yes, absolutely. It kind of... So I had a case of the man flu, is what I thought. And I thought I would just sleep it off. And what actually happened is over the weekend, we called 111, told them where I'd been on holiday. They said, right, take a COVID test. Took one of them, but I've been vaccinated. They said, oh, yeah, you've got COVID. I goes, oh, but I've been away as well. Then they're like, okay, well, the chances are having both is really unlucky, so don't worry about that, just sleep it off. So back to your question, it was just, as the days went on, I started to become more and more delirious, but I didn't quite know it myself. So
but no one had put malaria and COVID together?
No. No, not at all. Because I didn't really have very many mosquito bites.
Right.
I counted 4 in total.
That's unlucky, isn't it?
Yeah, really unlucky. It was quite surreal, to be perfectly honest, because the chances of me getting that, feeling pretty good, coming off holiday, my partner had felt run down as well. She'd gone to the doctors and gone to the hospital. Everything was fine with her. She had had more mosquito bites than I had done, and we were in exactly the same area. So I'm like, I've just got what you haven't. it's always been a tendency where like she might get ill and then a week later or so I'll fall ill, and it was just one of those. So I was adamant I was perfectly fine. I had a GP appointment on the Friday and I was going to wait for that.
And which day was it that the paramedics came around?
Paramedics came on the Thursday.
Right.
And at that point, my partner, she was working from Birmingham. She was asking me a couple of questions. I was texting back and I was just making no sense at all. And at that point is when she phoned the ambulance.
So she didn't tell you she was phoning the ambulance?
No, she was asking me constantly to go to A&E myself, and I was like, I don't need to. I'll just wait for the doctors on the Friday.
So she was that worried?
Yeah, and I was being pig-headed and saying I'm fine, nothing to worry about. I'm just going to go to the doctors on Friday.
How long had you been back from Mozambique to when the ambulance came?
So it was a space of 2 weeks. Bearing in mind, I came back from Mozambique, got off the flight, dropped my suitcase off, went straight into work because I used my annual leave for holiday.
Yeah, I used to do that.
Yeah. So I didn't think anything of it. And then I carried on my week, went to like my normal gym class in the morning, went to watch the football, went food with some of my friends, my cousin. Just felt a bit run down, but I just thought it was the fact that I've had a 19-hour flight. I've got straight back into it as though nothing happened. And I just didn't really think anything of it. The office, everyone was a bit poorly that time of year. Everyone's got the sniffles and things. So I just thought I might have something like that. And I suppose I thought it was because I was sat under an aircon, but I was really cold one day. That happened to me on a Friday, and I left work and was supposed to go to a beer festival, and I was like, I'm not going. And I never not go out. If there's something on, I'm going. I just get crazy FOMO. And at that point, really, I should have gone straight to the hospital, but I insisted on sleeping it off.
But I feel like it's all of those like little things that add up together when you look back on it and you're like, oh.
Hindsight, you get 20/20 vision, right?
Yeah. You're like, oh, all of those things are adding up.
Absolutely.
So the paramedics have come to your home.
Yeah.
You've gone to hospital.
Yes.
At what point does it start to kind of kick in just how serious this is getting?
Even when I got taken into the ambulance, I still didn't think anything of it. Right? I thought everyone's just overreacting. I didn't want to waste the hospital's time and the NHS's, right? I'm perfectly fine. I got into A&E, they took me straight in, ran a few tests, and apparently the screen just blew up bright red.
Really?
Yeah. And then at that point, they told me I had malaria, and my reaction was I just laughed.
Why do you think you laughed?
I don't know. I still think it was surreal. I didn't believe it.
Mm-hmm. Did you have a kind of a clear understanding of like what that was or what that means?
No, not entirely, no. We talked about it when I was in Mozambique because the time of year we went, just the seasons, we'd actually been there the year before, exactly the same locations, and we had no problems whatsoever. So we went a different time because it was whale season.
Yeah.
And we went scuba diving with humpback whales, which was epic, right?
Would have been a great holiday.
Yeah. I mean, it still was. Honestly, it was just a holiday of a lifetime. But we talked about it when we were over there, and it was a topic of conversation with the expats and things like that. And they were like, oh, you can get the test, you can get the medication from any pharmacy for like $2. Right, it's that common over there. It's like
so
we
you didn't
get the
take
flu.
Anti-malarials?
I didn't.
No,
Again,
and you regret that now, don't you?
Yeah.
What was was it just because like it's so talked about? I'm just not going to bother.
An air of arrogance. I'd gone backpacking a long time ago.
Yeah.
Always had weird side effects. I was going there to scuba dive. I get seasick and the waves are massive and I'm on a dinghy like in the middle of the ocean. So I just didn't want that to hamper any of the experience.
Yeah.
And then, it was all calculated. I'd also been the year before in the exact same locations and had no problems whatsoever.
So you weighed it
I
up.
I was fine, yeah.
Well, you're in hospital then, 22 days intensive care, over a month in hospital total.
Yes.
36 days. During those 22 days, are you compos mentis? Are you coming in and out of consciousness? What do you remember? What do you recall from them?
Great question. So my last memory was me getting pushed out of A&E into ICU. And then I've got a mind blank. Like
Nothing.
And apparently that was normal. What they said was I was hours away from dying. And if I'd waited until my doctor's appointment, I still remember the time, 11:30 on the Friday, I'd have probably died in my sleep.
Wow. Because can you just go through the numbers of the kind of severe malaria percentage is 10%?
Yes.
What was your percentage?
Like 36.
So, yeah.
I think 36%.
Really high.
So at the point of me going to A&E, I'd had my kidneys had completely failed at this point, and they had been for I don't know how long. So when I got taken into A&E, and this is from information from the nurses and my partner, that they were talking about inducing me into a coma straight away because I'd gone in that poorly. Trust me to just leave it to the very last minute.
Yeah, I mean, you were in some state. You had 2 strains of malaria.
Yes.
COVID, multiple organ failure, including, like you say, kidney failure, the onset of lung failure, swelling on the brain, and 36% malaria level in your blood.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's pretty bleak.
It's tough.
But the reason we wanted to talk to you is because one of the things that, you're here, you're talking, you're healthy again. One of the things that the doctor said when they did get you better was that running is actually a massive part as to why you were able to recover. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So the first 2 weeks of being in ICU, it's quite normal for you to have mind blanks. Your body naturally shuts off. So the second half of my phase, when I started to improve, and I sort of was slightly aware of my surroundings, or became more aware of my surroundings, the doctors, I still vividly remember, like, we don't know how you're still here.
It's always reassuring when a doctor says that.
I'm in ICU at this point still, and then we don't know how you're still alive. My results were sent across the country to get reevaluated, and I was checked again and checked over again. From memory, my partner was told on the daily, we don't know if this is going to work. He might pull through, he might not.
Which must have been terrifying, because she was in Birmingham when you went into hospital.
That's
so
right.
then how soon was she able to get there?
Well, she came, there's another story on that as well. I left my phone in the ambulance. It fell out of my pocket. I had no idea. So she had no way of contacting me.
So she didn't know what hospital you were in?
She didn't know what hospital I was in, and there's multiple in Manchester. The staff at the A&E got my Apple Watch and found the contact through that, and that's how they
clever,
phoned
aren't
her.
they?
Yeah, genius.
Hero.
Absolutely genius.
Yeah.
And that's how they got in touch with me. My phone was in the ambulance. So
Gosh, that must have been
talk
so
about stress
stressful.
on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she found you eventually.
She found me eventually, and it was at that point when I got admitted, and that's when she got told the situation or the circumstances where I was in at the time. And as I said, I wasn't reacting very well to the medication, like the standard medication they would use to like cure malaria. I was allergic to it. So this was just problem after problem after problem.
Yeah.
And they were trying to eliminate each problem incrementally.
Yeah, because the problem just went on and on, didn't they?
Yeah.
Then you got something called HLH, which is a rare autoimmune disease.
Yes.
I mean,
So that made matters a lot worse.
but and at what point then did
Oh, God.
what was it that the medical team told you about your body because you ran that helped you fight this?
So I'd just come out of the most intensive part of intense ICU, where you're in the rooms and you kind of go onto a ward. And this is when I started being more familiar with where I was. And they literally just said, like, you were never training for a marathon, you were training for malaria.
Really?
That's what one of the doctors said. And that's when, like, it kind of really sparked sort of a, okay, right. And that was the catalyst to sort of why we started a Just Giving page. And I wanted to do more than just say thank you with a box of chocolates and a card or a clap at 8 o'clock on a Thursday.
Yeah.
And we decided to try and raise money for North Manchester General as a way of saying thank you. And it was halfway through my time at ICU when they were honestly, constantly saying, we don't know how you're still here. And this was on the regular. And then they explained how my heart was the only strong thing that was going. And at one point, and I do recall this, that I was just lying there and my heart rate was going at 200 BPM and I was just lying there.
Wow.
And it was consistently like this for days. My temperature...
What's your normal max heart rate?
Now, it's about 54.
Your max running heart rate?
Oh, my max running heart rate.
I was going to be like, wow, you're so
You're
fit.
so fit. No wonder you survived malaria. That was
I
easy.
don't actually know.
It's probably about 180, 190.
I reckon so. Yeah. I'll have to check. But it's about that, I'd say. I'm just an average Joe. I'm no athlete. I'm not like...
And what had your training been kind of before the holiday, before all of this happened?
Great question. So rewind a little bit to the pandemic. We started running just as something to do. You know, we were in lockdown. I live in the middle of town. Mm-hmm. I wasn't doing exercise and I was working though. So I was sat at my computer for 12 hours plus a day trying to build software really. And I started running and then one of my neighbours saw me and asked if he could join. And I was like, yeah, of course. I'm really slow, but let's go. Mm-hmm. And so every morning after that, we started doing like a little 3K loop round. And before him, I was just running up the street and then back down again.
Really?
Yeah.
Just the top of the road?
Yeah, just the top road and back down again. Honestly, it wasn't much.
Yeah.
And then he's like, should we... I showed him my route and then he's like really politely saying, should we try a different route? I've seen another one. And then he took me around the canal and I was just like, oh my God. Like, even though I know I live around canals, I never thought about running along them.
Yeah.
And another friend asked if we could join in the mornings and we started doing this regularly. So that year when I got poorly, we were training for, it started off training for like a 10K. And then the back end of the year before, we trained for the Manchester Half.
Nice.
Wow.
So that was sort of what I was training for. Ran that. And that was like my max. I was like, you know what, I've done it. Like, I'm happy. After the race, one of my friends who had ran marathons before were like, we're going to run the marathon next. And I'm like, no chance. Like,
absolutely not.
Like, no.
You sound so like Rick.
Isn't that amazing? From 2020, just running to the end of your road to even a discussion that goes, I'm going to run the marathon next.
Yeah.
Is that one of the minute, tiny bonuses that came out of lockdowns that you met your neighbour and decided to run to the top of your road and back?
And we're best of friends now. There's a group of us. We've dubbed ourselves the Warehouse Wanderers because we're just little geeks, I suppose. Our apartment block is called the Warehouse. Its project name was the Warehouse, so that's why we did that. But as you say, like it started from really small steps to training for a half. Thought that was great, and then they managed to convince me. I actually remember signing up in the end of February, when I was training with my friend who was planning to run the Manchester Marathon. I still at this point said, no, I'm not doing it. But they were all running. They were all running and I wasn't doing anything at the weekend. So I was like, you know what, I'll do your long runs with you. Because obviously at the weekend, that's what they do, right?
Yeah.
So then it started off as a 10, then a 17, then next, couple of weeks later, I've done 32k, and I'm like, oh wow. And then it was my old boss, the CTO. He was just like, if you've done 32, you can knock out a marathon on the day.
You can.
I was like, nah. I was like, yeah, you can. And then I signed up. So it was like literally 6 weeks before the day we were going to run, I'd signed up before then.
So in the space of a couple of years, you took your body from nothing to everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I kind of, obviously after we did that, I was like peak performance.
Yeah.
And then I kind of dovetailed off and we just did the occasional run and just carried on steady again. And then we talked about running another half and things like that. And we talked about Barcelona, which was in February of this year, 2024. I was like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Go to Barca, do a little run. It'd be awesome. And then I fell ill. And then it was when that statement was made that I was never training for a marathon. I was always training for malaria. Was like, right, okay, I'm going to try and do some more runs.
Yeah.
I think it's such a good way of framing as well, of like, I think a lot of people wrestle with, okay, why do I actually run?
Yeah.
And like, what's the point? And is it for, I think a lot of people get like a negative connotation with running, especially, is, oh, you must just run because you want to look good, or like because you want to feel good. But actually, no, like if you just put it down to the pure kind of the reason we do exercise and we look after our bodies is for when the worst thing happens. Yeah. Your body is there going, no, we've prepped for this. Like, we're in a good condition. We can fight this.
Absolutely. And like, I never thought for 1 second, I was like, the joke was like, you're running for a 6-pack. Do you know what I mean? Something like that. But it wasn't really about that. Even when we did start the running, it was all about like, talking and like, it was just something to do that wasn't being in the pub. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we helped talk to each other about our problems or what was going on in our lives. And it was really like a great community, like a friendship, a brotherhood that I ended up developing because of it. Never in my life did I think I was going to, it was going to transform my body or anything like that.
Or save your life.
Or save my life, exactly. And I said this before, but I never realised I needed it until it actually came to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And then how did it feel when you didn't have it? Because you wanted to run and raise money for the hospital that saved your life. But how was that kind of interim period of getting well enough that you could leave hospital, but probably not being able to start running straight away? How was that kind of transition?
So this was really tough because I forgot how to walk when ICU. And then you go to physio to just like, I was coughing when I was just rolling over on my side. Like I couldn't really move. And then as time went on, I was able to, they helped me just get out of my bed and sit down on a chair like this next to my bed. And that was an effort. And then I had to train myself just to walk just around the ward to the toilet. And then knowing that like I could not run again, or I might not be able to, because at this point I still didn't know what impact all of this was going to happen, or what impact all of this was going to have on my body. It was devastating. Like I was just absolutely mortified that all the things that I really enjoyed doing, I might not be able to do. And at the time it's like, well, I can't do that anymore.
Does that mean that you're motivated by different things now? As in, before you were motivated by getting up and maybe fitness, but now you see it as more holistic, as in the reason I do this is more about my whole health rather than just keeping fit day to day?
There's definitely something about just going out there and doing something. Like the hardest thing you can do is get up and go, right? That's the biggest challenge, isn't it? But once you've done it, how happy are you with yourself?
Yeah, I always say it's the buzz for the rest of the day.
Yeah, 100%.
It is, right?
Yeah.
And like, it's that thing that I knew when I was in hospital that I wouldn't get again, that made it so hard. And so like gut wrenching, like to the point where it's like, well, what's the point? Do you know what I mean? Like,
are you paying back now though, Prav? Is that what you feel you're doing? You're paying the hospital back because you're so grateful for what the doctors did for you, and now you want to raise money for the hospital?
I feel like I needed to do something. So I just don't think thank you was enough. Like, there's not very many people that are able to turn around and say, I came out of that ward, which is, let's face it, you're either going to be in there and die or you're coming out. And there's not very many people that can come out and say, actually, for 2 weeks, I was watching how they worked, watching like the amazing interactions and, a bad day in their office is very different to a bad day in most other people's office,
God,
It's just crazy, right? And it's just that I was one of the, few success stories. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So this is a way of me paying them back to say thank you. It's also running especially, and this is try and prove to like my loved ones, especially like my partner, that I'm all right. Like, I'm back to normal and hopefully better than I was before.
Are you all right?
I'm getting there. I've still got issues, a year later, I've still got issues with my kidneys and my liver. My mental health has taken a battering. But again, running's massively helped me on that. And one of the issues that I really faced after the ICU, after I came out of ICU and hospital, it was right. You're on your own now to sort the rest of yourself out. I didn't have this huge team with me to help me. It was on me. And that was another catalyst of why I really wanted to make sure that I was training and running because I knew this saved my life.
I think you've surprised yourself, because me and you spoke on the phone, didn't we, about you coming on, and you were kind of a little bit nervous, a little bit kind of, I'm not quite sure if I can, put my words together and make it flow as coherently as I'd like to. But you speak so well about it and so cleanly and so well and with such passion. And I think, what you're doing with the hospital, the fact that you feel that they did such an amazing job for your life, your health, your well-being and your family, and the fact that you're now paying them back by, raising money for the Manchester Foundation Trust charity. It's a great thing to do. Not everybody comes out of hospital and thinks, I'm going to pay back. And you are doing that.
It's a way to say thank you, right? It's the only thing I can think of, like I'd like to do more. But I thought, 10 grand is a great starting point to say thanks and use that money because, not everyone's as fortunate as I have been. I have to like holistically start thinking about that side of things as well. And the little things that were once really important to me before all of this is now not so significant. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I've not had this moment where everything is rosy and gleaming, but I do still vividly remember going into Asda for the first time on a rainy day in Manchester, beaming because I was in a supermarket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could choose your own food.
Choose my own food.
So I love being pushed around in the trolley.
Do you know what I mean? It was just it was unreal. Like just the small things that you always take for granted.
Yeah.
Going to the toilet, having a shower, brushing your teeth.
Yeah.
These things that you never think or anything. I was so grateful that I had the opportunity to do it.
No, it's great to be alive.
Now going for runs again.
Yeah.
So can you just describe, just to kind of finish off, you did make it back to running again.
Yeah.
You are running. How did it feel to get back to being able to run, and what's next for you in your running?
Right. So it felt amazing. I was definitely trying really hard to get focused. I ran with a community here in London actually called Chasing Lights.
What, you came down south?
No, they actually came to us.
I was going to say.
Yeah. We're actually running there later on today, actually. So it's complete full circle of
really?
what's happened. Yeah. You should come.
North London's hilly enough.
It was all about sort of breath work and strength work. And they tried what they basically did was give me a really unique training plan that helped me really keep focused on what I needed to do.
Nice.
So from the space of coming out of hospital to April, I then ran London, which was an unreal experience.
Yeah.
Mile 21 was sort of my mental finish line because that's where everyone was. My partner was, my friends. Big cheer. It was unbelievable. And I'll do it again in a heartbeat. But I think what's next for me is continue running, continue trying to just stay as healthy as I can.
Good man.
And I've just got a taste for trail running.
Nice.
So yeah, there is a run called Peak Divide, which you run from Sheffield to Manchester, which I'm toying with.
How far's that one?
76k.
Oh, you madman.
Yeah.
And you know what he just said though, Sarah? He said that mile 21 was his finish line. What were you like at mile 21?
I was an absolute mess. I did London as
yeah,
well.
I looked like I had 2 types of malaria.
Yeah.
Yeah, mile 21 is awful. It was where they should have made the marathon end.
Yeah.
But instead they just thought, why not? 5 more miles. What can go wrong? Well, from the person who had not run at all in lockdown to the person now who has completed 2 marathons and is considering an ultra.
Yeah.
And on top of that has been in ICU and in hospital for over a month. I think you should be incredibly proud of that last few years.
Thank you.
More kind of things than most people go through in a lifetime.
I think so. And I think everything has there's a silver lining to everything. Because of my experience, I started a new job in mental health and well-being. That wouldn't have happened if this entire experience happened, and I'll just continue doing it. I've just been ever so grateful for the people who have been there and around me, people I never thought would be there, who have been there to support me through this journey. And it's still not finished yet.
No.
But that's all right. Just take one step at a time, right?
To keep ticking off the ultra marathons, and we will be at the sideline cheering you on. I don't think you'll ever see Rick being in an ultra. But
Definitely not.
Thank you so much for coming on TRC Meets. It's been great to meet you.
Thank you.